God's solution is Jesus Christ.
Oh, well, fuck. So again, true of Christianity, but not true of reality. If Jesus did exist and he did die on the cross, then I don't think that it accomplished anything other than, a Jewish man was crucified on a cross by the Roman government. Like, I don't see how that solves anything. I don't think that anybody else's death solves anything for me. And, nuances aside, as far as this particular context goes, like, I think that if somebody dies, that doesn't mean that whatever bad shit I've done in my life is just totally absolved. Like, I don't think it has any effect on me. So I don't see how this is a truth, but also I don't see how it's a solution. God is all powerful, but his only solution is to kill himself as his son? The fuck, you say?
In the greatest invasion of all time, God entered human history.
The greatest invasion of all time. If you were to ask me, what's the greatest invasion of all time? One could probably say D-Day. D-Day might be a good invasion, to retake France. I don't know what other invasions exist. I can only really think of D-Day as far as invasion-y type of things. But I definitely wouldn't say some Jewish fuck was born at about 4 BCE or 6 AD. We really don't fucking know. A Jewish fuck was born that claimed to be the son of God, and that when he died, his death absolves sins. That's not an invasion. He didn't invade anything.
Though he was God, Jesus Christ was like us in every way, except he was without sin.
All right, so I'm giddy about this, okay, because it works in my favor that he's saying this. So this is quite interesting right here, the way that he frames this, because if you think about Christian theology, especially Jewish theology, the thing is that when you're born, like, physically into this world under how they would call the law, you were born into sin. Like, just the very fact that you're born means that you have sin. You were tainted with sin. Of course, this is depending on theology, depending on, several different things. But for the most part, in Christian theology, in the Bible, you were born with sin. If Jesus was literally born on earth, how was he born sinless? If the very fact that you were born through a woman means that you have sin, how is he sinless? Now, this is easily explained like on mythicism, because in mythicism, it says that, well, Jesus had a body that was created, not born of a woman. So it was created for him. And so that body was sinless. It wasn't born of a woman. It makes sense if Jesus is sinless, for him not to be born of a woman, which means that his body was manufactured by God. Now, of course, Catholics get around this by the Immaculate Conception. Some people have a weird idea about what the Immaculate Conception is. So the Immaculate Conception in Roman Catholic dogma asserts that Mary, the mother of Jesus, was preserved free of the effects of the sin of Adam, usually referred to as original sin, from the instant of her conception. So that's how they get around this whole idea that, you're born into sin, which means that not only was Jesus sinless, but apparently Mary was born without sin too, which is a little fucking weird, but whatever. So the Immaculate Conception is about Mary being born sinless, and that was so that she could bear Jesus as a child. Now, we could get into the nuances of, like, well, why couldn't Mary have been the sacrifice, since she was already born sinless, and she could have absolved sins and everything like that. But of course, a man had to do it. But in any case, so it's just sort of stated that she was immaculately conceived. It's sort of like one of those things that they derive. Like that, there's no way to explain how Jesus could be literally born on earth, but also be born, like how Jesus was born of a woman. Like, how can you explain that? If everybody that's born of a woman is born into sin, then how is it that Jesus was sinless from birth? Well, easy. Mary was immaculately conceived, which I don't fucking understand that either. How was Mary free of the sin? And because we don't have any genealogies of Mary, like, we don't know who Mary's parents were. We don't know where she fucking came from. We don't know any of that shit. A wizard did it. He went abracadabra, jashoom, and then boom, Mary was conceived without sperm or anything. Just magic, abracadabraed her into existence.
He lived a perfect life, which meant he didn't have to pay a penalty for his own sin.
Oh, here's another idea to kind of just thinking of different problems with this whole idea that Jesus was born sinless. Like he was sinless. Well, if Jesus was born sinless, then why did they have to concoct various reasons for Jesus to be baptized in the Jordan? John doesn't really seem to have a very explicit call to Jesus being baptized. John just proclaims, he does say that he is the one who baptizes with the Holy Spirit. So I think the synoptic gospels have Jesus being baptized, especially Mark, because Mark starts with the baptism or the epiphany. But it's kind of weird to suggest that Jesus needed to be baptized if he was born perfect. Like if he was a perfect individual, he led a perfect life, he was sinless, then he didn't really need to be baptized. But the Gospels have him being baptized.
Nevertheless, he voluntarily chose to die in our place to pay the death penalty we deserve for the sins we've committed.
Now, poetically and theologically, this makes sense, right? There's several reasons why Jesus had to die as far as the story of Christianity goes. In the beginning, you had God punking Abraham by trying to kill Isaac, and he stops him. But then, God completes the act by sacrificing his own son. So in that sense, it's poetic. It's also poetic that, human blood magic would be far more powerful than animal blood magic. And so a human had to die who would be more perfect to die than God himself. And so there's that. There's several theological reasons why it makes sense in the story of Christianity for it to happen. But as a real solution to what God calls sin, I don't get it. Like, how does God being copy pasted into a human on earth and being killed, how does that absolve sin? I don't get it. Like I said, there's a number of theological and story-driven reasons as to why that had to happen. But as far as a solution for sin, something that God could just change his mind on without the need for killing a person, why is it that is the solution that God, this all-knowing entity, goes with? It seems like the most convoluted solution that you could propose for this situation. I could just see the brainstorming session between God and the angels. God's like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to copy and paste myself down on earth and kill myself. And the angels are like, maybe, but couldn't you just change your opinion on this whole sin thing? That seems to be a whole lot easier. Plus, you don't got to go down there for so many years. And God's like, nah, I'm just going to go ahead and kill myself down there. It just doesn't make sense to me.
What happened at the cross was the greatest transaction in history. My sin was placed on Christ. He suffered the death penalty in my place. In return, Christ's righteousness, his moral perfection, was placed on us.
So all of this seems very arbitrary, right? For instance, if in our justice system, if this happens right now, the person that frames another person and puts their quote unquote sins upon another person, the other person suffers the penalty for those quote unquote sins, that doesn't automatically make us righteous. Like, that's just not how that shit works. So all of this seems rather arbitrary to me, because it just makes it out to be like these things just happen because that's just how it is, without actually explaining why this happens. If like, say that guy on the right there killed a woman, but that sin is placed on Jesus, and then Jesus dies for that sin, obviously, because he's died for everybody's sin. If that guy dies for that guy's sin right there, then how does that make him righteous? This I can't point to him because it's out of the frame for my camera, but that fucker right there still killed a woman. He still did that. He is not righteous now just because Jesus fucking got pinned on a cross and died. Like, that's just not how shit works.
Then when Jesus rose from the dead, he broke the power of sin, death, and hell. Once and for all, God has moved heaven and earth to restore your relationship with him.
He's moved. What has he fucking done? I mean, there's a story that's obviously not historical that people have told that suggests that God has done it. But like, has he really moved heaven and earth in order to do that? Like, I don't see how God has done anything to do that. Some fucks made up a story that makes people feel good. That's not moving heaven and earth.